Well, it's taken us about 7 years and 300 shows, and we had to get past Larry and Foxworthy and Engvall, but the blue collar circle is finally complete now. Ron White joins us. Ron, welcome back to Atlantic City.
Well, thank you very much, and I apologize it's taken me so long to be on your fine show.
Well,
but it's a privilege and an honor.
Everything happens in its time and when it's supposed to, and
That's
this is
right.
when it was supposed to.
That's right.
All right, so you're here in Atlantic City at Harrah's Resort on your moral compass tour, which begs the question, where does the needle on your moral compass point these days?
Due south, it seems. Every once in a while, my management company will bug me to change the name of my tour, which I think the tour doesn't really need a name. I think they could just use my name and say Ron's coming back. But they're like, no, you got to change the name of the tour. So,
well, who works for who there? I mean, come on.
I know, but I'm trying to take advice and trying not to micromanage everything. So I gave them a name for the tour, and they assumed that was going to be the name of the next album, but it's not. So there never will be a Moral Compass album.
Oh, there won't?
No,
okay.
and I'm not backing up a Moral Compass album. It was a line in a show that got a small laugh, and I cut it out, but it's still the Moral Compass tour.
Oh, okay, so that works. I mean, well, you Can't Fix Stupid. Yeah,
Right.
You've named all your tours, and this is the latest one.
Right, but it's the only one that didn't have an album to go with it.
Okay.
You Can't Fix Stupid was an album.
Right.
Right.
So why wouldn't there be a Moral Compass album? Or do you have
Because I just don't like the name. I've got an album already recorded, and I don't like that name. And I can't even remember what I'm going to call it now. Do you know, honey? My wife's over there. She's part of my memory. What did I change my mind to?
She doesn't remember.
She's not helping this time.
She's not. Okay, you're on your own.
But anyway, I don't remember. I don't know what I'm going to name it. Behavioral Problems was the last album I did. And I don't know what I'm going to call this one.
Well,
it's in the can.
It's the Ron White album.
The Ron White album. That's right.
The latest Ron White album.
Yeah, that's a great title.
There you go. The latest. There you go.
Right.
No trouble.
Everybody knows exactly what it is.
Exactly. It
Unless
says
they don't know who I am, and then it doesn't matter anyway because they're not going to buy the record.
You have had an interesting career, to say the least. You spent a lot of years as a club date comic, and it rose up to like the mid-level comic, on a 3-comic set and everything. Then you hooked up with those other guys back in 2000. How did you end up hooking up with Larry and Engvall and Foxworthy?
Well, it was originally it was Jeff and I were on a tour together, and I was his opening act. And Jeff's always been. I've known Jeff since the day I got into comedy. He was the headliner in the club I first did open mic night in, which was the Funny Bone in Arlington, Texas, in 1986, and he came up to me after my first set and said, "You're really funny, but you need to put the punchline at the end of the joke." And I was like, "Oh yeah, that sounds good." And this is how generous this guy is. He sits down with a brand new spanking green comic who has 4 jokes, period, and they 4 of them all add up to 4 minutes of material. So they're not long bits, but there's 4 of them. And he sits down and he writes them out on paper, and then he shows me how to switch I don't even know how to tell you how to do it wrong now because I've been doing it for 27 years since then. But it was Jeff's generosity that first kind of welcomed me to comedy, and then when he got big enough to take somebody with him, he took me with him. It's been his goal for a lot of years to make me a famous comedian, and he truly sucks at it because it took him forever.
You started in '86.
I got stuff to do, right? Come on, Jeff.
Well, maybe it was deliberate.
So Jeff first told me that we're on a plane flying back to Atlanta, and after one of his big shows, and he told me that we were going to combine Bill Engvall's tour, which didn't have Larry on it had another guy, and he said the 4 of us are going to go out on the road, and my comment was, "That's retarded." That's how big a seer I am. So.
Well, you just thought 4 comics.
Yeah, why do you need them?
Right.
Why do you need me? Engvall was a real big comic too, and I can't even remember the other guy's name. Kind of like my new album. I'm seeing some bad signs.
Okay. All right. So, but you went along with the joke anyway. You went out with those guys. They came up with the name Blue Collar.
Right.
Okay. And was your style then? Just telling stories. Was it the same as it was in '86 when he fixed those 4 jokes for you?
Well, my show had always been a little rowdier, and so when this started, I'd been doing stand-up for 16 years. So I was a prominent club headliner in the Funny Bone chains, and
which is a good living.
Oh, yeah.
You make a good living.
Oh, right. Especially if you're not paying your taxes.
Right.
And I wasn't. So it seemed like I made even more than I did. And believe me, they caught up, though.
But yeah, they usually do that, don't they?
They caught up.
Yeah.
It was a real fun time in my life, and an amazing set of circumstances that got me there. And what happens is something's got to happen to make you famous. It doesn't matter how good you do in Omaha on Thursday. It's not going to make you famous. And so what worked for me was that the Warner Brothers made this blue collar thing into a movie, and I didn't even understand what that meant whenever I heard it. I was like, oh, that sounds good. And so even though it didn't do well in theaters, and when it didn't do well in theaters, I thought, well, there's the end of it. And but turns out if something's good, it has all these other outlets now. So back then it was DVD sales and rentals, and they were two of them were the biggest selling comedy albums of all time, and the other one not far behind, 10 million albums we sold, and or DVDs. So people had me in their house with that first one, 4 million copies, and showing it to all their friends. I'm doing a 10-minute set and then an 8-minute story at the end of it. And so it was ideal because I got famous off of 10 minutes and that tater salad story. So I had a whole hour and a half of knock you out stuff that nobody's ever heard before. And usually people have to burn that to get famous, and then they're going to tour with their next load of.
So it was almost like it was an accident or something.
Yeah, well, my retirement plan was maybe something neat will happen. That's how much I think it out, think it through. And so it just turned out, that this was, this is how it all came to pass. And
so in '86, when Foxworthy said, let me fix these jokes for you, were you telling jokes or were you telling stories like you do today? Because the beauty of your comedy is not so much that you tell jokes, you tell stories, and it's not so much the material, it's how you say. It's not what you say, it's how you say. Your delivery is brilliant.
Well, thank you. I really don't remember if they weren't very long stories.
Too much of this back then?
Right. Well, now I think. Yeah, none of this back then. I had a Budweiser and a cigarette. So now it's a glass of scotch and a cigar.
And good scotch, too.
What was the question again?
How your comedy style evolved. I mean, what were you doing in '86?
I was always a good storyteller, and that was always my strength, although I didn't know it. There's no way when you start off in this little journey that you can really understand what you're going to evolve into. But I always knew I was a good storyteller. I just didn't know where it would fit. And when I became a good writer is when I found a way to punch up those stories but it seemed like I could always do that. Even as a kid, I could, there could be 10 people tell a story and I would get laughs off of it.
You always wanted to be a comedian from the time you were a little kid.
No, I never, I'm from a little dirt town in Northwest Texas. They really don't cover the arts too thoroughly career day. They're like, well, you can get some wrenches,
or you
can get a torch, or you can get a shovel, or you can not even, anyway. So it really never dawned on me, and that I could do that if I wanted to do it. And I was a huge comedy fan as a kid, though. I had every comedy album from what it was football, which was an Andy Griffith record, to Bob Newhart, Flip Wilson, Bill Cosby, Cheech and Chong,
the classics
Pryor,
from the 50s, 60s. Yeah,
anybody that made comedy. There weren't very many comics back then.
Right.
And a spot on The Tonight Show could turn you into a pretty
because
big
there weren't comedy clubs on every corner back then.
Yeah, and there was also not 50,000 stations. There were 3.
Right.
And we didn't get one of them, so we had 2. But and all of them influenced me. But luckily, I was able to find a way to be true to my nature, and that's real important to be able to figure out who you are and talk about yourself and your life and not somebody else's. And Foxworthy was making more money than anybody in the world. And if I would have tried to be more like him instead of more like me, I'd have never made a nickel in this business. And
but why would you want to be like him when there's already a him out there?
Right. Well, that's how a lot of people operate, though.
I mean,
you see somebody hot, and then you'll see 2 or 3 guys that look just like Mitch Hedberg now
Right.
and sound like Mitch Hedberg or Bill Hicks or some prominent
Now, the
comics.
fortunate thing with those guys is that Mitch Hedberg is dead, so
So is Hicks.
Right,
Right, so
right, so
they
Hicks,
can't
right.
even defend themselves.
Yeah, or sue him for stealing
Right.
for stealing material. When did you decide though that you wanted to go out on stage and try and be funny?
Not until '86. I was
Really?
driving from where I lived to where I worked, and they built a Funny Bone Comedy Club right in the middle of it. And so every day they put the sign up first, and so it was intriguing. And then one day, this guy named Sam Bartholomew, still a dear friend today, we worked selling windows together, and he went to the first open mic night, and he came in the next day and he said, "You're funnier than these guys. You should go do this." And now here we sit, 27 years later.
What was it like that?
10,000 live shows.
What was it like that first night though? You go.
I
out there
remember
and
the guy. His name was Ron something. Big fella. And he said, I remember he said, "Please enjoy the comedy stylings of Ron White." And I was already walking towards the stage, and I'm like, "Oh, I really can't stop this." And I'm not even sure what a comedy styling is.
I was going to say, did you know what a styling was at that point?
I don't know, but it sounded good. The comedy stylings, like I had put some thought into this. I developed some sort of style. And so I just went up there, and I got a couple of laughs that I stepped on, and then Foxworthy showed me how to not step on them, how to move this part here, say this part last, and then stare at them and see if they laugh. And,
What was that first laugh like though? I mean, if you didn't get it, we might not be sitting here today.
yeah, right. If I'd have gotten discouraged early, well, what happened was it was so easy for me to do that it was the first time I ever felt at home anywhere or felt like I belonged anywhere. That I didn't feel like a phony, something that I was legitimately good at. 6 months after I started, I was the opening act at the Riviera Hotel in Las Vegas with Bud Freeman out there going, "He discovered me." And then nothing happened for 16 years after that. And then we had a little flurry towards the end. So.
All right, so you're out there telling stories. You hook up with Foxworthy. He shows you how to structure stuff like that. The stories that you tell, how much of them are 100% reality? How much of them are embellished? Like what I'm thinking of is Drunken Public.
Right. Well, Drunken Public, which is a bit I haven't done for 7 or 8 years, is
But it's
I had
brilliant.
2 or 3, and Foxworthy was one of the ones that said, I would just tell stories, when we're hanging off stage. He goes, "You got to do that on stage, man." And I'm like, "Really? It's not really."
Oh, so you told him that?
Yeah, I'm just
sitting around
telling
like this.
stories.
Okay.
So I had a couple of drunk stories with a bunch of punchlines, and I just combined them into one story. I actually got beat up and thrown out of a bar in Chicago, but the other punchlines happened in New York, and I really didn't need 2 stories, but because the punchlines all fit in one if I would do it. So they always start with something makes me think of it because I don't sit down and write anything. So, but if I can find a way to lie to make it funnier, I'm not married to the truth at all. Right now I'm closing with a story about falling off of Dr. Phil's yacht in Monaco, and every word of it's true. So this is just one of those stories that just didn't need.
All right, well, I haven't heard that one yet.
Right.
What's
Well, you're going to stick around, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I was going to say.
I'll close with it tonight.
Okay. When does a story transition from being just a story to material on stage? I mean, when do you work it out, or you just go out and do it and hope for the best?
Yeah, the newest one is that Dr. Phil story, and that actually happened probably 2 summers ago, right? And 2 summers ago, and I always thought, well, that there are little glimpses of that would be wonderful on stage, and then one night I just walked out there and started telling the story, and then I could kind of figure out the beats of it, later. But I knew the first time I did it that there was really, really something sweet here, and Doc loves it. He is a friend of mine. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was going to say, when you tell stories that involve other people,
right?
I mean, do you run it past them first?
I did with Doc,
right?
Because he's so high profile, and he goes, "As long as you don't say I said it." I'm like, "All right, no, I said it."
You said it, right?
Right, I said it. Right.
You said it.
So whatever it was, I said it.
Who makes you laugh?
Oh, I'm taking my son to see Book of Mormon tomorrow in New York, and I saw that a couple of months ago and laughed until I couldn't breathe.
Really?
Straight stand-up, it's hard to get at me, But I love David Tell, who's just a dear friend of mine. I like all the Blue Collar Boys, and Daniel Tosh is a really funny comedian. I don't watch the show, but I've known him since he was a kid. We all knew he was going to be gigantic. I don't watch much stand-up anymore because it just affects my pace, and I'm lucky enough to have my road manager, who you met, Steve. He and I have been friends since we were 6 years old, and so that's almost 50 years.
Wow.
And then my opening act, Alex Ramundo, is my brother-in-law.
Really?
Yeah, the guy, the big guy with the beard, that's my son. So, where it's a really tight organization, it's hard to get a job over here at my camp.
I was going to say, Ron White Incorporated is a tough nut to crack.
Yeah, it is. It is.
When Blue Collar went to series, it became a TV series. You didn't sign on with that as a regular. You became like a guest distraction or something,
right.
like five or six times. You didn't want to be, typecast as a country comic.
Well, it wasn't that so much. I mean, number one, I thought the idea was bad, and I thought it was I thought the idea was cheesy, and then I thought it turned out way better than I thought it was going to. And the couple times that I did do it, I had a blast doing it, and I thought they did a great job with it. But already it was clear that I was a little rowdy for those boys, and so the stage was set for me to go out and start doing theaters on my own. We'd already kind of finished Blue Collar when that happened. We got together and made another album, I think, and. Their manager and I hate each other. Well, he hates me worse than I hate him because I just don't have the energy for it anymore, But he's a twit. And,
don't hold back, Ron. Just say what's on your mind.
Right, he's a twit. All right. And so it just didn't fit anymore. And so the guys are great. And for a little while they did some shows without me, and they did very well with it. And they certainly don't need me to do shows. So they now I think they've. I'm not sure if they're doing it anymore. I talk to Foxworthy all the time. We live 8 miles from each other in Atlanta, and so if we're both in town, we have lunch every Tuesday. So I kind of keep up with what's going on.
So there might be a reunion, or it might not be. I mean, it would seem to me that just to make a lot of money, you guys could go out, do a short tour, and
Well, I don't think Jeff needs any money. I really don't.
Yeah, but you might.
Yeah, right. I might. No, I think we would do it for charity, but we've all been very, very, very lucky, and I don't think anybody needs to do it. For me to do it, I'd have to clean up my act to be as clean as Jeff's, because it's out of respect for Jeff. It's Jeff's tour. Jeff's the one. His generosity is the one that made it possible for all of us. So I would never ever do anything that would embarrass Jeff. And this guy, still, he goes to church every Sunday. He takes his kids to school. He doesn't cuss in public. In private a little bit, but he's very, very true to his nature, which is, more like a Cosby than a Pryor, and I'm just a little rowdy.
So you're the Pryor of the gang, and he's the Cosby.
Right, I think so.
Okay. Hey, you got about 1,300 people downstairs waiting for you to go down and tell stories, and I'm not going to hold you up. Been a pleasure.
Oh, thank you very
for
much.
for breaking the ice and everything, and thank you for the taste.
Cheers.
Continued success, Ron.
You too.